Hello, my name's Roisin. Goodreads have announced their Goodreads Choice Awards long lists for 2023, and we're going to look at the historical fiction category because in 2020 and 2021 I read the shortlist for the Goodreads Choice Awards historical fiction. They have since changed it so that instead of you getting like 2 weeks between the shortlists announced and the winner, you now get like 4 days. If I look here, you get from the 28th to the 7th of December. Okay, you get 9 days. I can't read 10 books in 9 days. I have a job. But I still thought it would be fun to react to, and maybe I will read them over a longer period and not just try to get it in ahead of the winner being announced this year. We'll see what the shortlist looks like. Let's see if I can manage to screen record. I don't know if that's working. I have literally no idea if it's working. Ah, yeah, seems to be working. Okay, so we're going to go into historical fiction. Well, I've already seen in the top line that there's one I have already read, which is helpful. So we have Banyan Moon by Thao, sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. That one looks interesting to me. The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese, which is one I read when I was reading books by Indian authors, which I will leave linked in the cards above. I thought it was good, but not great. It didn't particularly interest me. It's a story set in Kerala, beginning in 1901 and going up to 1971, I think. That follows this family where there is a curse that at least one person in the family always drowns, and our main character kind of married into this family. I say main character, but it is a family saga that goes over the generations, and it moves from character to character, covering a lot of Indian history through the First World War, Second World War, and the independence, partition, up until the 70s. So it covers a lot of history, the emergence of Marxism in Kerala. It's a very interesting history, but I think it was told more like a history. If you like Pachinko, I think you would like this book. Then we have The Keeper of Hidden Books by Madeline Martin, which I can already tell you I don't want to read that book. It's got books in the title. I don't like books about books. I think there are generally speaking quite twee. It looks like the Second World War. I don't like Second World War fiction. I have a video I just put up about that. It's about All the Light You Cannot See, but I do give a 10-minute spiel about why I don't like World War II fiction in it, so you can go and check that one out as well if you're interested. But yeah, that is exactly the kind of cover that makes me not like historical fiction, even though I do like historical fiction. The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride is definitely one that I have seen before, and I've heard the name James McBride before. Let me see if I can see what he did. James McBride. Deacon King Kong. Okay, that was on the list before of historical fiction, and it was also a book I wanted to read, but it didn't make the shortlist the year I was reading it. It was only on the long list. But he is a writer that I'm interested in. So let's see. Then we've got River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer, which I believe recently won, was it a National Book Award? I think it won something recently. The cover could go either way. That cover, it could be good or it could be a little maudlin. Not maudlin, but just a little sentimental, I think, for my taste. It could work though. It's like one of those that's either or. Hang the Moon by Jeanette Walls, again looks like Second World War, vignette photograph, very cheesy cover. I'm not sure about that one. And Looking for Jane, similarly by Heather Marshall, again looks like it's Second World War. There's a lot of these romance set during the Second World War books. I'm not convinced I would be interested in that either. Then we have Weyward by Emilia Hart, which looks like fantasy, but when I did this a few years ago, there was one of the practical magic books that was set in the Salem times. So it was set in historical times, but it did have witchcraft in it. So I guess historical fantasy is it more historical or is it more fantasy, as to which side it falls on. But that Weyward looks like fantasy to me. Did you hear about Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith Paul? I've not heard about that one. The cover looks like it's trying to give Evelyn Hugo. Obviously Taylor Jenkins Reid, very popular historical fiction. I'm not a fan, but a lot of people like it, and this looks like it is jumping on that bandwagon, and looks like it might be about famous people. Then we have Beyond That the Sea by Laura Spence-Ash. Again, I can't really tell much from this, but there are airplanes in the sky, which means it's World War II. Another one. I don't know. But Jesmyn Ward is on this list. Let Us Descend, Jesmyn Ward. That is a book that I really, 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 really want to read. I love Jesmyn Ward's writing. I've only read one of her books, but her writing is absolutely stunning, so I'm excited to see what her historical fiction is. And then we have Kristin Harmel, The Paris Daughter. Now, I've read Kristin Harmel before and I didn't like it. And again, The Paris Daughter, this is definitely set in France during World War II. There are planes. Can you see the planes up in the corner there? If there are planes embossed over a cityscape or a countryside with a woman's back turned to you, you know you have got 1, 2, 3, 4 World War II fiction. This one, I think, could also be the 50s. I don't know. This one's under a car rather than standing backwards, and there are no planes, so we don't know. Barbara Davis, The Echo of Old Books. I'm sorry, that looks like it should be only printed in large print. Again, like I said, I'm not really a fan of books about books. The Wind Knows My Name by Isabel Allende. I read A Long Petal of the Sea by Allende, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I thought it was okay. But I know Allende is well loved, well known for being like one of the magical realist writers. She's from Chile, so that's one that, like, yeah, I would read that. Like, I'd be interested in reading that. Then we have The House of Eve by Sadeqa Johnson, who wrote The Yellow Wife. There. It's there. I'm not going to get it out, but it is there. Because, again, I had to buy it when I did one of these before because it wasn't available digitally or in my library. So I had to buy the physical copy of the book. I think it had to be shipped from the States because that's the problem. These Goodreads ones go on US release dates, so not everything is released here. I don't remember particularly loving that one, but I don't remember hating it either. That one was about slavery. This one looks like it's set in the 1950s, so not the same. Northwards by Daniel Mason is a book that I am currently reading for another vlog. So that one I will have read by the time these results come out. I loved A Registry of My Passage Upon the Earth, which was a collection of short stories, and they were historical fiction as well, by Daniel Mason. I really loved his writing. I have seen people hyping this one up. I bet it doesn't have, like, I will look into it properly, but it has 3,000 ratings, which I think is going to be one of the fewest ratings. So I doubt it, even though it's going to be one of the ones I've read, I doubt it's going to get into the shortlist. Then we have Go as a River by Shelley Reid. This one, again, could go either way in terms of whether I like it or not. By the cover, I quite enjoy it, but there is a person in that peach, and that's making me think that it might go more sentimental than not. I've not heard anything about it. The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Path Callahan Henry. Patty, sorry. Not got my glasses on. That's another one with book in the title. This happened every other time as well. There were several with books in the title. And here we have 3 with books in the title. Seems to be a thing that comes up with historical fiction. Don't know what that's about though. Lady Tan's Circle of Women by Lisa C. This one, the cover is not speaking to me. I know nothing about it. And we have The Vast and Wild by Lauren Groff. I have read Lauren Groff. Was Matrix by Lauren Groff? I didn't love that. And that was historical fiction as well. But I didn't love it, but I was intrigued enough to maybe give it another go. So, we'll see. So out of the 20, it is 20, isn't it? 4 times 5, that's 20. I have read one, and I am currently reading another one. But let's see what the books are actually about. So we have Banyan Moon by Thao. This one has 13,000 ratings. So not a huge amount, but more than the Daniel Mason. When Anne Tran gets the call that her fiercely beloved grandmother Min has passed away, her life is already at a crossroads. The years since she's last seen Min, Anne has built a seemingly perfect life, but it all crumbles with one positive pregnancy test. When both their relationships are carefully planned, future now in question. Anne returns home to Florida to face her estranged mother. Running parallel to this is Min's story as she goes from love-struck teenager living in the shadow of the Vietnam War to determined young mother immigrating to America in the search of a better life for her children, spanning decades and continents from 60s Vietnam to the wild swamplands of the Florida coast. Banyan Moon is a stunning and deeply moving story of mothers and daughters. So we've got one thing that I don't like in historical fiction, generally speaking, which is dual timelines. At least we know, like, it's a mother and daughter, a grandmother and granddaughter, rather than being, like, what's the connection? There's a secret connection. Obviously they're related. Like the ones where it just seems like they're odd timelines. But yeah, I'm not usually a huge fan. It's also only half historical fiction because half of it's set in Florida now. Vietnam, I haven't read much Vietnamese fiction, and I would be intrigued to. It's an interesting time period, the Vietnam War. But yeah, I'm kind of cautiously interested. The Keeper of Hidden Books, which I said I didn't want to read, a heartwarming story about the power of books to bring us together, inspired by the true story of the underground library in World War II Warsaw. That makes me feel sick, physically sick. I know I talk about books and I should be more interested in books about books and, like, up on the power of books. I don't think it's the power of books, it's the power of people. Books don't have any power. All her life, Sophia has found comfort in two things during times of hardship: books and her best friend Jania. As the bombs rain down, Sophia finds that books are now also in need of saving. With the death count rising, Sophia jumps to action to save her friend and salvage whatever books she can from the wreckage. She and her dearest friend never surrender to their love of reading, even when Janina is forced into a newly formed ghetto. Right, so it is a Holocaust book, not just a World War II book, and the best friend is the Jewish character, and the writer is also a romance writer, which is fine, and nothing wrong with being a romance writer, but it does mean that we're going to have Holocaust romance, possibly. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think that's one that I definitely don't want to read. If that's on the list, I'm going to be less inclined to do this. Okay, The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. As I said, James McBride is someone I am interested in reading about. We're set in 1972. Workers in Pottstown, Pennsylvania were digging the foundations for a new development and found a skeleton at the bottom of the well. Who the skeleton and how it got there was a long-held secret kept by the residents of Chicken Hill, the dilapidated neighbourhood where immigrant Jews and African Americans lived side by side. It becomes clear how much the people who live on the margin struggle and what they'll do to survive. When the truth is finally revealed about what happened at Chicken Hill and the part of the town's white establishment played in it, McBride shows us that even in dark times, it's love and community that sustain us. Yeah, this one could be good. This one could be good. Sounds a bit cheesy in terms of the way it's being described, but you can't always, advertising is generally cheesy. So, I hope that one's on it. River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer. Okay, so this is the slavery one. What I did notice when I was doing this before is that most are World War II, and then the second most common theme is pre-war Southern American slavery. Those just seem to be the most common historical fiction to write about. The master of the Providence plantation in Barbados gathers his slaves and announces the king has decreed an end to slavery. But no one can leave. They must work for him for another 6 years. Freedom is just another name for the life they've always lived. So Rachel runs. Away from Providence, she begins a desperate search to find her children, 5 who survived birth and were sold. Are any of them still alive? The grueling, dangerous journey takes her from Barbados then, by river, deep into the forests of British Guinea, and finally across the sea to Trinidad. She is driven on by the certainty that a mother cannot be truly free without knowing what has become of her children. Again, this one could be good. It depends on the writing. It depends on the plot. We will see. But it's got a 4.03 rating. Obviously, it has to have a high rating. This one I'm still on the fence about. Hang the Moon by Jeanette Wallace. Okay, this one's set in Prohibition, so I was wrong. It's not a World War II novel, it's a 1920s novel. Sally Kincaid is the daughter of the biggest man in a small town, the charismatic Duke Kincaid. Born at the turn of the 20th century into a life of comfort and privilege, Sally remembers little about her mother who died in a violent argument with the Duke. When Sally tries to teach young Eddie to be more like their father, her daredevil coaching leads to an accident and Sally is cast out. 9 years later she returns, determined to reclaim her place in the family. She enters a world of conflict and lawlessness. Sally confronts the secrets and scandals that hide in the shadows of the big house, navigates the factions of family and town, and finally comes into her own as a bold and sometimes reckless bootlegger. This one I don't have any feelings either way. The cover is making me think it won't be any good, but we know what they say about judging books by their covers. Always do it. This one, again, I don't want to read this. Oh, this is, okay, Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. It's got 3 different timelines. And this is a debut. About 3 women whose lives are bound together by a long-lost letter, a mother's love, and a secret network of women fighting for the right to choose. Okay, we're not World War II, at least. But why does she look like she's in the 1940s if it's 1971 and 1980 in these time periods? I would have a word with your cover designer. Women whose lives are bound together by a long-lost letter. That sounds really shit. When Angela Creighton discovers a mysterious letter in 2017 containing a life-shattering confession, she is determined to find the intended recipient. Codename Jane. Right, okay, so this is about Codename Jane. So we're in New York in the 1970s and 80s. All of these women who went by the name of Jane, and you called Jane, and they would find you, they would connect you with a doctor who would provide you with an illegal abortion. Yeah, I know this story. But still, I don't think this book is going to be a good version of it. Wayward. It's another one with 3 time periods, and one of them's World War II. Why are you doing this to me, Goodreads? Under the cover of darkness, Kate flees London for a ramshackle wayward cottage inherited from a great aunt she barely remembers. She begins to suspect her great aunt had a secret, one that lurks in the bones of the cottage, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century. 1619, Alpha is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer who was stampeded to death by his herd. As a girl, Alpha's mother taught her magic, a kind rooted in spellcasting, but in a deep knowledge of the natural world. 1942, as World War II rages, Violet is trapped in her family's grand crumbling estate. Straitjacketed by societal convention, she longs for a robust education her brother exceeds. The only traces Violet has are of her are a locket and the initial W and the word Weyward scratched on the baseboard of her bedroom. Okay, so this one isn't. It says magical realism rather than fantasy. That cover looks very fantasy to me. And so do all the ones that it is being compared to. I think that sounds so cheesy. Really, really cheesy. Like, just so predictable, individualist, feminist stuff that I just hate in fiction. Did you hear about Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith Paul? A multi-generational saga that traverses the glamour of old Hollywood. I don't like multi-generational sagas. I don't know why that is such a thing, such a like zeitgeisty thing. Like, so many books are multi-generational sagas now. I suppose they are really popular. Like, Pachinko is really popular, Homegoing was really popular, but I find they're really shallow in terms of character. I haven't found one I liked yet that was like multi-generational. A family saga that's about a family where you like all the family are together at the same time, that I can go with, but one that's spread over the time periods, I don't get it. When Kitty Carr Tate, a white icon of the silver screen, dies and bequeaths her multi-million-dollar estate to the St. John sisters through a young wealthy black woman, it prompts questions. A celebrity in her own right, Elise St. John would rather focus on sorting out Kitty's affairs than deal with the press, but what she discovers in one of Kitty's journals rocks her world harder than any other brewing scandal could. And between a cheating fiancé and the fallout from a controversial social media post, there are plenty. The truth behind Kitty's ascent to stardom begins in the segregated South, threatens to expose a web of unexpected family ties, debt owed, and debatable crimes that could, with one pull, unravel the all-American fabric of the St. John sisters and those closest to them. So we're going to find out that Kitty Carr Tate is actually a mixed-race black woman who passed as white, I'm assuming. This one sounds like it could be like fun and rompy, which I do need more of in my life. Next we have Beyond That the Sea by Laura Spence-Ash, which is described as a sweeping, tender-hearted story. As German bombs fall over London in 1940, working-class parents Millie and Reginald Thompson make an impossible choice. They send their daughter to live in America. There she'll be safe, with another family. Scared and angry and feeling lonely, Bea arrives in Boston to meet the Gregorys and their sons William and Gerald. Fold Bea seamlessly into their world. She becomes part of this lovely family, learning their ways and stories. The girl she had been begins to fade until abruptly she is called home to London when the war ends. As she returns to post-war London, the memory of her American family stays with her, never fully letting her go and always pulling at her heart as she tries to move on. This one actually sounds more interesting. It's not really about the war in the way that I dislike World War II fiction. I'm sure there will be elements of it, but it's more like introspective and character-focused by the sounds of it. Like, it's more about this girl. The books that it's being compared to make me less interested, and the cover makes me less interested, but sometimes books surprise you. Sometimes they do. Maybe this could be one. Let Us Descend, that Jesmyn Ward. I'm going to read this one. Even if I don't read the shortlist, even if it doesn't end up on the shortlist, I'm going to read this one at some point. This novel is a journey from the rice fields of Carolinas to the slave markets of New Orleans and the fearsome heart of a Louisiana sugar plantation. Alice, sold south by the white enslaver who fathered her, is the reader's guide through this hellscape. As she struggles through the miles-long march, Alice turns inward, seeking comfort from the memories of her mother and stories of her African warrior grandmother. Throughout, she opens herself to the world beyond this, one teeming with earth and water, myth and history, spirits who nurture and give, and those who manipulate and take. I've talked before about how much I love ghost stories. I have a whole video about literary ghost stories and how much I love them. Sing Unburied Sing, which also has ghosts in, so I think maybe she does use that recurring motif. This one, yeah, I definitely want to read. The Paris Daughter by Kristin Harmel. Now, which is the Kristin Harmel I have read before? The Book of Lost Names. Oh, yes. The one where Jewish people kneel to pray. Jewish people don't kneel to pray. Holocaust romance with someone who doesn't know anything about Judaism. Okay, Paris, 1939. Young mothers Elise and Juliette become fast friends the day they meet in the beautiful Bois de Boulogne. Though there is a shadow of war creeping across Europe, neither woman suspects that their lives are about to irrevocably change. When Elise becomes the target of a German occupation, she entrusts Juliette with the most precious thing in her life, her young daughter. But nowhere is safe in war, not even a quiet little bookshop like Juliette's Librairie de Rêve. And when a bomb falls in their neighbourhood, Juliette's world is destroyed along with it. More than a year later, with the war finally ending, Elise returns to reunite with her daughter, only to find her friend's bookstore reduced to rubble. What happened to her daughter in those last terrible months? I don't like Kristin Harmel's writing. I think it is saccharine, soppy, stupid. I think this book will be no different. Now we have The Echo of Old Books, which I am not intrigued by from the cover, and it's also described as magical realism. Rare book dealer Aisling Greer's affinity for books extends beyond the intoxicating scent of old paper, ink and leather. She can feel the echoes of the book's previous owners, an emotional fingerprint only she can read. 2 books inscribed with a startling incrimination. Both the authors, Hemi and Bell, tell conflicting sides of a tragic romance. With no trace of how these mysterious books came into the world, Aisling is caught up in a decades-old literary mystery, beckoned by 2 hearts in ruins, whoever they were, wherever they are. Determined to learn the truth behind the doomed lover's tale, she reads on, following the trail of broken promises and seemingly unforgiving betrayals. And the unfinished chapters of her own life. No, this sounds like actual shit. It's got really high ratings though, and 38,000 of them. So, I mean, maybe I'm being overly judgmental, but I can't see it being any good. I can only see it being saccharine. The Wind Knows My Name by Isabel Allende. Vienna, 1938. Oh, it's another World War II novel. Samuel Adler was 6 years old when his father disappeared during Kristallnacht, a night when their family lost everything. Samuel's mother secured a spot for him on the last Kindertransport train out of Nazi-occupied Austria to the UK. Arizona, 2019. 8 decades later, Anita Diaz, a blind 7-year-old girl, and her mother board another train, fleeing looming danger in El Salvador and seeking refuge in the US. However, their arrival coincides with the new family separation policy, and Anita finds herself alone at a camp in Nogales. She escapes through her trips to Bahar, a magical world of the imagination. Assigned to Selena Duran, a young social worker who enlists the help of a promising lawyer from one of San Francisco's top law firms. Together they discover that Anita has another family member in the United States, Leticia Cordero, who is employed at the home of now 86-year-old Samuel Adler. Right, okay. So it is World War II fiction, it is Holocaust fiction, but I know that Isabel Allende works with the UNHCR, is that right? The UN relation with refugees. So it's about refugees. It might be a little blunt and on the nose, but it could still be an interesting read, I think. The House of Eve by Sadeqa Johnson. 1950s Philadelphia. 15-year-old Ruby Purcell is on track to becoming the first person in her family to attend college, in spite of having a mother more interested in keeping a man than raising a daughter. But a taboo love affair threatens to pull her back down into poverty and desperation. Eleanor Corrales arrives in Washington, D.C. with ambition and secrets. When she meets the handsome William Pride at Howard University, they fall madly in love. But William hails from one of D.C.'s elite, wealthy black families, and his parents don't let anyone into their fold. Eleanor hopes that a baby will make her finally feel at home in William's family and grant her the life she's been searching for. So we do have 2 different stories, but I think they're at the same time period here. Yeah, I think this one could be a bit predictable, quite straightforward. Northwards by Daniel Mason. A pair of young lovers abscond from a Puritan quality. Little do they know their humble cabin in the woods will become home to an extraordinary succession of inhabitants. An English soldier destined for glory abandons the battlefields of the New World. The twins survive war and famine only to succumb to desire. A crime reporter unearths a mass grave. He finds the ancient trees refuse to give up their secrets. Traversing cycles of history, nature and even literature, Northwood shows a myriad of magical ways in which we're connected to our environment and others across time, language and space. So this sounds like a saga across different generations. However, it is more like interconnected short stories. And since I know Daniel Mason writes short stories I like, I'm happy to persevere with his book. I think I'm going to really like it. I've not read very much so far, but I do love his writing. And so, even though it's only got 3,000 ratings, the lowest of any of these, I hope it makes it. Go as a River by Shelley Reid. Okay, well, after World War II, we're set in 1948, so maybe. Victoria Nash delivers late-season peaches from her family's farm set amid the wild beauty of Colorado. As she heads into her village, a dishevelled stranger stops to ask her the way. How she chooses to answer will unknowingly alter the course of both their young lives, propelling Victoria away from the only home she has ever known and towards a reckoning with lost hope and her own untapped strength. This one, you've been given very little information about this one, so I have no idea what it is about, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt because I quite like that cover. The Secret Book of Flora Lee. It's about World War II. It's got the word book in the title. When a woman discovers a rare book that has connections to her past, long-held secrets about her missing sister and their childhood spent in the English countryside are revealed. No, in war-torn London of 1939, 14-year-old Hazel and 5-year-old Flora are evacuated to a rural village to help escape the horrors of the Second World War. But the unthinkable happens when Flora suddenly vanishes while playing near the banks of the river. 20 years later, Hazel is in London, ready to move on from her job at a cosy rare bookstore to a career at Sotheby's. With a charming boyfriend and her elegant, time-worn Bloomsbury flat, Hazel's future seems determined. But her tidy life is turned upside down when she unwraps a package containing an illustrated book called Whisperwood and the River of Stars. I don't know, that doesn't sound like it's for me. But it doesn't sound as bad as some of the other ones, I have to say. Lady Tan's Circle of Women. This one's set in 15th century China, about a woman physician. That premise already sounds more interesting to me than a lot of the other ones. It's actually one of the only ones that's not set in the 20th century. According to Confucius, an educated woman is a worthless woman, but Tan Yuzhan, born into an elite family yet haunted by death, separation and loneliness, is being raised by her grandparents to be of use. Her grandmother is one of only a handful of female doctors in China, and she teaches Yuzhan the pillars of Chinese medicine. From a young age, Yuzhan learns about women's illness, many of which relate to childbearing, alongside a young midwife in training, Mei Ling. The two girls find a fast friendship with a beautiful purpose, despite the prohibition that a doctor should never touch blood while a midwife comes in frequent contact with it. Yunzhen is sent into an arranged marriage. Her mother-in-law forbids her from seeing Mei Ling, from helping the women and girls in the household. I could see that one being interesting. It's at least set over only one time period, set in a different time period. That's interesting. That one was written well. I think that could be a good, interesting book. I'm intrigued, at least for the first time. And then finally we have The Vast Wild by Lauren Groff. As I said, I'm not sure about Lauren Groff's writing, but all of the readers also enjoyed books that I am reading or have read or want to read, so it should be more my thing. A servant girl escapes from colonial settlement in the wilderness. She carries nothing with her but her wits, a few possessions, and the spark of God that burns hot within her. Oh yes, I love people who are obsessed with God. I love books about that. Obsession, belief. I think those can be super interesting. What she finds in that terra incognita is beyond the limits of her imagination and will bend her belief in anything that her own civilization has taught her. A thrilling adventure story and a penetrating fable about trying to find a new way of living in a world succumbing to the churn of colonialism. Okay. I admit that I am now intrigued. I haven't liked Lauren Groff's other work that I read. I think it was just The Matrix. Let's see if there are 10 in there that I actually want to read or would be interested to read or have read. So, we have The Covenant of Water, Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, Let Us Descend, Northwards, and The Vast Wild. Those are the ones that I have read or actually want to read. And then I would also read Lady Tan's Circle of Women. I think I said Go as a River. The Wind Knows My Name, Banyan Moon, River Sing Me Home, and maybe Beyond That the Sea. That was one that also interested me. So there are at least 11 on there that I could potentially be up for reading. And then there are the other 9 I don't really want to read. If it's The Secret Book, that may be alright. The House of Eve might be alright. Looking for Jane and Hang the Moon, potentially. Potentially those ones would be alright. So 15 out of these 20 historical fictions are set in the 20th century. So that does show the limit of the scope of the books in terms of the actual history that they are telling. They are mostly telling World War II, just after or just before World War II are the most common. There aren't even any World War I books in this. I think there was a big boom of them 30 years ago. They haven't become as popular again. With Birdsong and Regeneration and all that. Yeah, so there are some books in here I'd be interested to read. We'll see how many of those 11 make it into the final 10, and that will probably make my choice for me about whether I do that, and you can let me know too. Are you interested? I did put a poll on my Instagram and it was 60-40, people who wanted me to and people who didn't want me to put myself through it. So I'd so let me know in the comments down below. Would you be interested in me reading what Goodreads say are the best historical fictions of 2023? Maybe I will subject myself to that again. I will not do it in as short a time period as I did the last 2 because I nearly lost my mind. And please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and to subscribe. I put out new videos twice a week, so I will see you again very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye!